And on behalf of the Golden Panda International Short Film Festival, I'd like to thank you all for being here with us. And a special thanks to Sid Ganis, a prolific motion picture producer and past president of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, Zhang Huijin, president of the Beijing Film Academy, president of the Golden Panda International Film Festival 2016 jury, and Huang Lian, editor-in-chief of the ChinaFilm.com, Guang Li, president of Zhongguan Sun Development Group in Toronto, Paul Can, senior manager at Trade and Invest, British Columbia, and James Wang, councillor and acting mayor of the city of Burnaby. It means a lot to the entire team that you're able to join us here today. Now I'll hand it over to Jan Walls for a few opening words. Professor Walls is a member of the Golden Panda International Short Film Festival Committee, and he was founder and the first director of both the David Lamb Center for International Communication and the Asia Canada program at Simon Fraser University. Professor Walls.
Thank you very much. Honored guests, fellow film fans, if you're like me. I'm not a professional in the film industry. Thank you very much for attending, and I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me the honor to take part in this important event. I've had the pleasure of being involved in as an honorary advisor for the past 4 film festivals. And I'm so happy to see the activities expand now to include this forum. As a non-specialist in the film industry, but somewhat of a specialist in Chinese Western communication and cooperation, I can only think of 3 reasons why the US, Canada, should be aggressively pursuing more collaborative relationships with China in the motion picture industry. 3 reasons. 1, people who have grown up in our major industrialized, commercialized, urbanized cities. I call this ICU cities, letter I, letter C, letter U. Industrialized, commercialized, urbanized environments have much more in common with each other, whether you grew up in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Vancouver, have much more in common with each other than with the people who live in non-industrialized, commercialized, urbanized towns in their own country. From the ways that we wake up, shower, get dressed, eat breakfast, the ways we get to work, the structure of our offices, and so forth, and the ways that we communicate with each other, seek entertainment after work and on weekends. There are far fewer barriers to communication and cooperation in addressing market opportunities than there used to be. We even have more people than ever before in history learning each other's languages today. The second reason we should be aggressively pursuing cooperation is that the first law of ecology states that it's impossible to do just one thing, because everything is connected with everything else on the planet. Whether we recognize it or not, whether we approve of it or not, this is simply the case. It's dictated by Mother Nature. So we might as well take advantage. We might as well take advantage of these connections in the film industry for each other's mutual advantage. The third reason is we live in market-oriented economies. And there are huge and growing markets in China for Western films, and the most successful ones will be those whose Western producers have had good advice during the early stages of production on how to make film appeal not only to traditional Western audiences, but to Chinese audiences as well. And the best advice comes through collaboration in the whole production process. Chinese investors have for the past few years been actively seeking Western film projects to invest their resources in, and we would be simply foolish to ignore such opportunities to gain support from overseas investors. Now, this is just about all I know about Sino-North American film industry opportunities. My specialty is medieval Chinese poetry. I translate medieval Chinese poetry. I wish everyone participating in today's forum success in your presentations, and I hope at the end of the day, we will all go home with greatly enriched and enriching knowledge of each other's interests and opportunities for collaboration. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. I'm to the hosts of the Golden Panda International Film Festival. I'm delighted to be here. I've taught many students from the Beijing Film Academy over my academic career, many brilliant students from the Beijing Film Academy. And so I'm going to talk today about a few issues in copyright law that I think are interesting and relevant. And I may have you advance the slides back there. Okay. I'm going to talk about three things today. One is some of the consequences of work for hire as an exception to U.S. copyright law. Next, I'm going to talk about YouTube and the sort of paradoxical evolution of how it's dealt with copyrighted material. And finally, I'm going to mention some surprising facts about reality TV, a format that winds up in the courts over copyright the most. Just a quick review that's important to remember. First of all, copyright law is federal in the United States. It's made up by Congress, and it deals with how you create it, how you protect it, how you can do business with it, how you can fight with it, and how to handle copyrights abroad. Now, and the important thing is that copyright only applies to original works of authorship that are fixed in a tangible medium of expression. That'll come up again later. By originality, we mean a very low bar, very low, very minimal. But it actually has to be fixed in a tangible form. It has to be on paper, in a recording, whatever. Okay, and copyright law changes with new technologies. Xeroxing was a big problem for the, sheet music industry, just like digital distribution is a problem for film today. And lobbyists for the technologies very much affect what happens. Okay, so in some parts of the world, there's a moral rights issue that says you can't sell your artistic creations. But we don't have that in the United States. In fact, we have a long tradition of you sign a contract, you give away your rights. Okay, so in film production, they don't want to be chasing down everybody's individual creative contribution. So from the beginnings of the studio system, you sign it all away. You don't get anywhere near the set or the production until you've given up all your rights to your copyright. Now, historically, the work for hire clause was negotiated in exchange for residual payments, so that, because given that the cost of a film, the costs are over when the film is done, but so if they're reselling it, especially in the digital age for years and years, there are no costs for that, commodity. So if something's getting sold over and over again, you should get a little bit of money. Below the line workers don't get anything. The studios, get the most money, the production companies, and we give a little change to the other creative personnel along the way. And residuals for actors, for example, typically acknowledge that you spend a lot of money developing your career over many years, and so when you get the big, hit, you're getting paid back in a way for all those years of training and work. And for actors, it's also associated with the fact that, say, you're on a television show that's very successful, it's in reruns and syndication for a long time, you can't really be cast in anything else while your face is on the TV screen. So you should be getting some residuals because they're getting money from it in syndication. So it's a form of profit participation. And what's interesting is that on the level of prestige, I think these days for something like, we think about Netflix original series. We think about Amazon, Orange is the New Black or something like that. But the irony is that you make the most money in broadcast television, a little less on cable, and for streaming there are no residuals. So this whole new model that we're moving into for a lot of the most, award-winning television, nobody gets any money back if it's a big hit, or no matter how many times it's on or it's sold. So the paradox here for Workforhire, I just want to point out, is there's no retransmission royalties for streaming. That's where a lot of people are moving because there's more creative license in these streaming original programming formats. But you actually could wind up making the least amount of money. If you want to make money, direct an episode of NCIS, which is ubiquitous on American television. Okay, the other paradox, and this is really kind of a troubling thing, is that Workforhire has been sort of expanded. So there's programs like Disney scholarships, where they not only own what you do when you go to Disney, but they own every thought in your head, everything 24/7 at home or at work while you're on that scholarship. So it's been expanded in a somewhat troubling way, especially for things like internships and that kind of thing. And I won't have time to go into this, but famously, the Bratz doll franchise was handed completely back to Mattel just because the guy did a few sketches and stuff while he was working at Mattel. Okay, secondly, YouTube. YouTube used to be a messy place in the beginning, full of all kinds of videos, student videos, anime music videos, all kinds of things, and everybody uploaded all kinds of licensed material to it. Prince said YouTube is the hippest network around. But of course, they started to get sued all over the place. Viacom famously went after YouTube, relentlessly to collect, takedown notices and that kind of thing. The funny thing is that YouTube managed to convert all this into a whole side business where it has all these subsidiary firms who watch the flagged material and make an offer to the users saying, how much would you like to pay? You can keep this up, this song, this movie clip or whatever, and here's what it costs. So they've actually become an intermediary between the studios and the users, in a sense collecting license fees from millions more people than they would have normally collected. So there are firms such as Zephyr, which is hundreds of people sitting in a room reviewing YouTube videos for copyright violations, contacting the user saying, okay, you can have it for $35 or $300 or whatever. Google always lands on its feet, comes up with all kinds of schemes. But of course, their position on copyright, they kind of do whatever suits their interests. So they'll argue for free posting if that suits their interests, if it's politically positive. On the other hand, they'll be very threatening about copyright infringements if that suits their interests. They just go with their political and business advantage to placate copyright holders. Okay, and my last example is from reality television. This has, been such a dramatic, had such dramatic impact, not just in the United States, but all over the world. But when a reality show is being created, there's nothing very tangible to do. There's a 2-page document called a leave behind, that if somebody's pitching a reality TV idea, which are notoriously stolen after the pitch session, that kind of sketches out the basic idea of a reality TV show. Then there are Bibles for the shows that lay out things like, here's how you will recruit contestants, here's what the rules of the game will be like. But the problem is, a lot of it cannot be copyrighted. You can't copyright titles, short phrases, slogans. You can't copyright ideas. You can, of course, shift to trademark law and copyright a logo, the voice with the blue letters or whatever, but that's only when you're already doing business. So the interesting thing is, reality TV sprung up during the writers' strike because they didn't want to pay writers anymore, and it was wildly successful. But what happens is they don't have anything to copyright because there isn't a script. Now, in reality, we know that reality TV is largely scripted. There was an early situation where the writers for America's Next Top Model all quit, and all went on strike, and they were all fired. So what they've done is the editors who are below the line really put the stories together and that sort of thing, and they sort of hide the fact that they're writers. But the problem is they can't protect themselves very well against competitors, or it's sort of the curse of having gotten rid of the script. Because not just ideas can't be copyrighted, you also can't copyright procedures, rules, game rules, etc. There was a case where I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here was sued by Survivor. And they're almost identical shows, really. Interesting, even, they were doing the same things of eating plates of worms and having jungle challenges and stuff like that. And Survivor lost, partly because even tiny changes in the challenges or whatever means you're not going to win the case. And also because they said that it was patently, kind of a satire. So reality TV is highly litigated because it's derivative, it's copycat, few elements that can be copyrighted. A winning reality show is very lucrative. We've seen these ones go all over the world. But there's this risk involved too, and so they're always in the courts. Okay, so just a few final thoughts on copyright for filmmakers. The problem with copyright is that even if you're innocent, it can cost you a lot of time and money. So what you need to do is, first of all, be extremely careful about using things like music or images, etc. Keep extensive records when you create something that have a kind of date stamp on them. Some people take a script and they mail it to themselves with registering it so that you can verify when you created this work. You can also register it with the WGA without being a member of the WGA, the Writers Guild of America. And to prove infringement, you have to prove that there was a valid copyright existed, that you had access to that, and that there's substantial similarity between the two works. Substantial similarity is a very complicated thing about what exactly that means, but it has to do with genre rule. You can copy all kinds of genre. You can copy an incredible amount of stuff before infringement kicks in. The thing about copyright litigation is it favors the big and the powerful. It leads to requesting license fees when they shouldn't really be required according to fair use laws, and it curbs fair use. So thank you very much.
We now have the pleasure of hearing from Ivor Benjamin. He's a London-based director, playwright, and journalist, and the current chair of the Directors Guild of Great Britain. He's a strong advocate of the cultural exchange in the film industries between China and the UK, and today he joins us to talk about how we continue to work together through co-production. Ivor Benjamin.
Zhao Shanghao, good morning. I have been watching Chinese films for most of my life because when I was young, I very much enjoyed Hong Kong kung fu movies. And gradually, over the years, I have graduated to more serious film. From around about 2009 onwards, I have been watching between 30 and 50 Chinese films a year through the China Film Image Film Festival. And it has come to my attention that the Chinese film, though in some cases very different to Western film, is in most cases extraordinarily good. Now, I would like to speak to you about the financing situation in Europe and the UK in regards to China. And of course, I cannot speak about this without talking about Brexit. And so I have added a slide at the end to talk about how this might impact the situation. European and UK film funding is tiny in comparison with the USA and with China. A good example would be The King's Speech, which is probably the most expensive film made independently in the UK, with a total production budget of $20 million. But as we know, there are wonderful talents and great skills in the UK and in Europe in the film industries. It is not a surprise that Hollywood spend around about $2 billion a year in the UK, making films in the UK. And there is a slowly growing number of European co-productions with China. And this is not new. This has been taking place over 10 years or more. There is a desire to work together, often founded by individuals meeting, realizing that they have things in common and wanting to work together. In 1994, the European Union created the European Convention on Cinematic Co-Production. And this was an overarching convention for the whole of the European Union in order to do a number of things, to promote the development of multilateral film production across the whole of the EU. Because up until that point, individual countries had worked with individual countries, but there was no overall agreement. It was also an effort to safeguard creation and the freedom of expression. And in that sense, one of the things about the EU is it is a moral guardian. It has principles that it seeks to defend, including the freedom of speech. And also to defend the cultural diversity of individual countries, because it's very easy for particularly the very large film organizations to impose a cultural viewpoint. I mean, Hollywood is often accused of imposing a cultural viewpoint. I don't think that's true. I think it's a kind of generic process. But smaller countries in the EU were losing their film industries, and this was a way to help protect them. Now, many European countries have been collaborating together to make feature films, but much more to make television. And a good example of that would be what we call Scandinoir. So if you're familiar with these Swedish or Norwegian or Danish television noir series, they tend to be co-productions, particularly with larger countries like Germany or France. Okay? And so investment comes from there, skills come from there, some actors may come from there. The Bridge may be a Danish production, but in fact there will be a European element to it. And I've got the example there of the French-German TV channel Arte, which has produced 200 films in 20 years, working with very large numbers of other countries, and maybe 11 other countries all working together. Now, a parallel for China might be different regions in China working together. And I'm very aware that regional governments in China can be quite competitive with one another, but this would be an example of them working together. The downside, the bad side of this, of course, is when you mix France, Sweden, Germany, Italy, and Greece, you may end up with something which is just a mess. And the phrase that you often hear is Euro pudding. Now, there have been a number of China-Europe co-productions. I'm given the example of Philippe Moyle's The Butterfly, which was remade with China as The Nightingale about 10 years after it was an original French production. And France, Italy, Germany, and Holland already have film co-production treaties for joint ventures and remakes. Now, the UK should have been amongst that group back in about 2009, 2010. But the Conservative government took over in 2010 in the UK and took away the UK Film Council because they saw it as a political organisation, just at the point where it was beginning to negotiate the film treaty with China. So it took another 5 years to actually develop and complete that negotiation. Now, the European Convention that I mentioned at the beginning, this overarching convention, does allow different EU countries to work together with China, and it allows them to operate in two ways. One is to operate through the overall convention, and the other is to operate through individual agreements between a country and China. And so there's a multiplicity of ways that a country, or as we see, several countries in Europe can work together also with China to make a co-production. And films made under a co-production agreement with China should be outside the Chinese foreign film quota system. Now, that's not necessarily the case if the Chinese government decides that a film is making too much money or is pushing other Chinese films out of the box office, then they can step in and say, no, that's enough, we'll move on now. And that did actually happen to Transformers 4, I think. So the UK finally had a co-production agreement in April 2014. But it wasn't signed until a year later in Beijing because Prince William happened to be there and it looked good to get him to sign the papers. This is a Tier 1 agreement. It gives maximum advantage to both China and the UK. Right? And it bypasses the British cultural content test. Right? Now, in Britain, we have not a quota system, but a system whereby in order to receive tax benefits or other benefits, you have to have a significant British content. And there are various rules about that. That also does apply in some cases in China. But the China-UK co-production treaty bypasses that cultural content test, and indeed any quota elements of content or of workers. So it's a very good overall co-production treaty between China and the UK. At the moment, it only applies to film, and not yet to TV, and not yet to animation. Right? And one would expect those things to be added at some point, but not yet. Right? It also allows what's called joint national status in both countries. So as with the EU arrangements, the European arrangements, films will be exempt from the Chinese foreign film quota system. It also offers film tax relief for productions and post-production in the UK. So that's both production and post-production, which would apply to, for example, to VFX or editing. And it offers some small access to UK government funding, but in reality, that's not such a large amount. For those of you of a mathematical mind, you can see how the breakdown on tax relief works. So it's not fantastic, but it is also not to be sneezed at, we say in English. So if you have a total budget of 2 million, 50% of that is spent in the UK, 80% of it is eligible for a 25% tax relief, so you will have got a 10% tax relief on your spend. This UK tax relief is not automatic. Even if a production qualifies for co-production under the treaty, it doesn't automatically get the film tax relief. However, right, we have it on good authority that if a film was to be made as a co-production with China, then the tax relief would apply because it doesn't happen very often, and the UK is very keen to promote good trade relationships with China. A Tier 1 China-UK production is a top-level agreement. So, again, I just want to stress, it doesn't have to pass any cultural tests, and it doesn't require Chinese personnel quotas. You don't have to have a minimum number of Chinese film workers or finance people or whatever working on a production. But it is still subject to script and budget vetting by SAFT. So scripts do have to be entered and they can be censored. Only a film made under the agreement can qualify for financial and marketing assistance from, for example, the British Film Institute and other UK national and regional film agencies. However, as I said before, the amount of money that one could get from such grants is relatively low. So, to give you an example, the British Film Institute has about £13 million a year to spend on subsidising all British film. So they have that only 13 million, and there are 80 to 100 films made a year, and the Film Institute chooses which ones it might give money to, but these will be relatively low sums of money. Of course, British films are made for relatively low budgets, but even so, the time and effort that one might go to try and get a grant for a co-production might not be worth the effort that you would otherwise spend in finding investors, for example. And there is nothing to stop a China-UK or China-Europe co-production going ahead without using the agreements, but that would lose many advantages, both in China and in the UK. And finally, Brexit. On June the 23rd, there was a UK referendum on leaving the European Union, and it was won by a very small majority, 4% of those people who voted. And less than 2/3 of the people who are eligible to vote in the UK actually voted anyway. So it was a smaller number of people. This result has thrown, as you know, I hope, most of the UK into some confusion, including the film industry, because it could take many years to complete such an exit. And in the meantime, it is not clear at what point, for example, the European Convention would fall or the co-production treaties that we have with other countries in the EU would break down or have to be remade. A lot of people hope that Brexit will never happen. There are legal challenges to Brexit ongoing, which may mean that it will never happen, but it has split the country in a way that I had hoped would never happen. British films collaborating with other EU countries will require new individual treaties. How far down the list of importance do we think that negotiating new film treaties will be to the British government and to European governments. It could take decades to get new agreements. If such projects also collaborate with China, it would have to be through individual European agreements, not the overall agreement. And any individual agreements between Britain would also then be covered by the British agreement with China. It is a spider's web. It's a mess. Films made under the China-UK Co-Production Treaty should still be outside of the quota system. So this new treaty with China, between China and the UK, should stand. But it does seriously affect the possibility of putting together wider co-productions between Europe, UK, and China. Okay, I hope that has been reasonably clear. I'm sorry it's so technical, but it is a very important state of play. Thank you very much indeed.
My name's Luke Alden, as the nice gentleman introduced me as. Work at Pixel Light Effects. We're a 3D scanning company, a small part of a lot of the VFX heavy productions. Anything that's needed to be put in a CG environment, it's useful to start with a 3D scan. We're mainly based here in Vancouver, but we also have a scanning system in Beijing as well. To give you an example, these are the kind of things we'd scan. So we scan humans, props and vehicles, as well as environments. All of those kind of things, like a vehicle, if it's going to get blown up, it's useful to have a scan, otherwise they actually have to blow up the vehicle, which obviously, as people have been talking about, that's how they do it in the old times, but they can get pretty expensive pretty quickly, so it's useful to do that. The main one I'm going to talk about is human scanning, because it's one of the harder ones to do. People are not very good at standing still, so you need to make sure you capture them very quickly. So we wanted to do that slightly differently to our competitors, so we built our scanning system into the back of a truck, so we can go anywhere. And we've got one of these in China and one in Vancouver, so that we can pull up to the side of the street and scan. It doesn't take us much time. And the inside of these tends to look pretty impressive. So to give you an example, that's how many cameras we have to have in there to make sure we get the people, because we have to capture them from every angle simultaneously, otherwise they tend to move and ruin the quality. Another example of a system we've built, this one's a little bit more controlled. We have a computer for each one of these cameras that controls when it goes off, and as well as a special lighting system. So it's pretty comprehensive, the kind of system we have to build to capture people. And this is an example of what you can do with our scans. So one of the panelists earlier talked about the uncanny valley. This is a big step towards it. Our scans capture the color of the actual person's skin. As well, it can capture the fine details, and we're looking to do more work on the glossiness of the skin. A lot of the details that all these CG people need to create the shaders and make it look extra lifelike. So some more examples that we do as well. You need the expressions that a specific person's face makes if you want to animate them with any kind of realism, because one person's smile is always going to be different from another. So because the scanning like this is so quick, we can do that. And you can see some more examples here, as well as a picture of me scanning a prop. Can often be useful for maquettes if someone models a physical thing that they want to then digitize and then replicate many times. You can scan it with this technique too. And again, just illustrating, we make all of our own hardware. So it's one of the big things for us is we didn't want to just make a scan system with someone else's technology. We wanted to make sure that we knew every step of the process, so that if anything goes wrong and we want to improve it, we can. And more examples of vehicles we've scanned, as well as environments. And just to give you an example, right, all of these shows we've worked on, and they've all needed to start from scans for various things. People's arms being cut off. They don't really want to cut an actor's arms off, so they get us in to do scans. And we've also worked with some of these other bigger productions. Main problem with working on a feature production here, especially a VFX heavy one, we can't talk about any of the ones we've worked on yet, but we've done some work with likes of Weta Digital. All those kind of companies need that kind of high quality scan. And a very short presentation from me, really. That's all I have to say, really. Thank you to everyone for the event, and thanks for listening. Cheers.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Munem King. I'm teaching animation at America University right now. So before I start my talk today, I would like to introduce my background a little bit. I studied CAD Arts, and then my major was experimental animation. So again, everyone talk about storytelling a lot today. So storytelling is one of the key elements at CAD Arts. So I learned from, I think, good teachers there about fundamental about filmmaking and animation. And then after graduate, my first job was at ILM. So I was lucky enough to work with like George Lucas company. And then I moved on to the Microsoft Game Studio, which is like great experience to me because back then I wasn't just an artist, but at the Microsoft I learned about how important to embracing the technology to our creative side. Because right now, the movie and game is actually combining big time. So it's overlapping many elements together. So in the future, like virtual reality or like mixed reality, we're talking about right now as a 21st century, this is a key element. So I learned many things about how to work with the programmer, and then even learn about coding, although I'm not a good coder. And then when I moved to Vancouver, Canada 6 years ago, and then I was a lead layout artist in digital domain in Vancouver. So right now, this is my class 2016 students. I'm teaching CG animation game development, also virtual reality in my class. So as my filmography, my work at VFX industry include Van Helsing, Star Wars Episode 3, War of the Worlds, Fantastic Four, 8 Below, and Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. My team, not my team, our team got Academy Award for this project. And no one remembers Poseidon. It was a sinking ship, right? So I worked on Poseidon too. At Microsoft also, I worked on some first-person shooter game, simulation game, and a bunch of entertainment stuff there. At Vancouver, I worked on Thor, Transformers, Jack the Giant Slayer, and Endless Game as a lead artist. So right now at Emily Carr, this is BC government funded project, so we got like around $500,000 to develop video game as an intervention for autistic kids. So this is a scientifically proved evidence-based game. So those like autistic kids, children play this game, it actually helped them out to improve their condition. So in 2 years later, we're gonna release this thing for free for entire BC. So BC Children's Hospital and many high school or junior high school are gonna use this game as a treatment for the autistic kids. So the reason I mention this thing is, embracing technology sometimes is kind of different for the like creative people like us, filmmakers or like animators. However, with this technology or emerging technology or like computer programming, we can actually help someone what they need, right? So my interest is how to combine art and technology all together. So we can make the great entertainment or we can help other people who they need something. So today, we are like, my talk is about the future of technology and film. So again, the evolution of filmmaking actually advanced with like technology in here, big time. So again, like 19th century, basically late 19th century, we have like moving pictures, right? People start with that. Hey, look at now, picture is moving, right? And then later on, the French guys make cinematograph, which is movie camera, also projector, and also printer, 3-in-1. And then this is actually first movie we actually pay money to watch the movie. So the Lumiere's brother actually charged money for that. And then we adopted some special effect and hand painted like color there. We started like the color movie started, and then synchronized the film. And we needed like bigger and bigger, right? So American style, right? Bigger film. So IMAX started. And now recently we have 3D stereoscopic movies, right? So you guys pay like $8 more for this, right? So filmmakers always like not shy about embracing technology and then take advantage of it, right? So now the new kid on the block is virtual reality, right? So when I talk about this virtual reality or mixed reality in my own school, Emily Carr is very art-centered and old school, right? My colleagues still animate with the sand, moving things around, right? However, as a 21st century as it is, if we're not embracing this technology, we're missing it out big time. So for example, virtual reality, it actually artificially create like some CGI imagery in front of you. So why it is so important? Because as you can see, the immersiveness and interactiveness is key in here. So you guys talk about this morning how important storytelling it is. But think about it. You telling the story, we're watching it. Last 100 years, our movie watching experience hasn't been changed. There's a screen out there, we're sitting there, we're watching it, right? But in 2016, we started make something new. It's not only watching it, we actually get into the story and then experience it, right? There's a big kind of point of view change there. So there's another called augmented reality. Some people thinking it will be bigger than virtual reality because it is actually virtual reality and augmented reality we're going to be combining soon. In my personal opinion, become a mixed reality soon. So we can just imagine like here. We have a table and chairs and everywhere. With augmented reality with the device, it can scan everything in here and then employ a whole bunch of like 3D character around here. So you can sitting next to the CG characters right there, right? So it's way more fun in a way. So the mixed reality happening a lot in the Magic Leap is like one of the most secretive like organization out there. They don't really say that much, only release little like hints out there. And the Microsoft HoloLens is more public. You all know what's going on with like nice futuristic like glass, right? And then you can see a bunch of things out there. So what is so important about mixed reality? Because we can actually combine digital world and physical world all together in front of your eye. So that is going to enhance your storytelling experience or receiving someone's story. How it start? This famous guy with lots of money invest $2 million to Oculus, right? So that's how it starts. Virtual reality technology has been exist many years, but it's reborn by this guy. And now you guys talking about money. Money is good, right? It's also business. So they think in 2020, the augmented reality or virtual reality, the expectation will be $120 billion. I don't know how big $1 billion is. I'm a professor in here, so I don't really know about it. But right now, it's only for the gaming world. Gaming world use this a lot. However, it's outgrown the game size. So you can actually use for so many different things. For example, video game, Goldman Sachs, they're money guy, they're smart on the money. They already research about it. They expecting like $80 billion kind of market out there. Include the video game, media, something like movies, right? And then healthcare and retail, engineering and military, education, you name it, right? So there's a new tool out there waiting for us to use it, right? So what is the future of like AR and VR or mixed reality? So some people thinking it's already here. It's actually happening right now. And some people thinking the opportunity will be even bigger than internet. Think about how the internet changed our life, right? You guys, even film distribution changed with like technology, right? Back then 35 millimeter shipping it out, now it's like small device. But in few years, when everyone has like optic fiber at home, you can actually deliver one feature film. You can download it in 2 seconds, right? So it changed a lot with technology. Is a virtual reality really future of the film? I don't know. I don't really know. However, there's a huge potential, right? Because we, as a filmmaker, we adopted sound, color, and 3D. So why not to adopt this new technology, right? Because it is a really exciting technology out there. So storytelling point of view might be changed. It's more like experience making, right? It's not storytelling. It's actually getting to the story. You can be one of the characters. You can actually embracing it. So again, right now the movie industry, how they receive this message. Like Steven Spielberg in Cannes Festival this year, he said it is dangerous, right? I mean, I can see it. Because think about a filmmaker. I was a like lead layout artist. In live action term, I was a DP at Digital Domain, right? So cinematography, we have a film language, right? We try to bring audience's attention or eye to those specific area, right? That's all about film language. However, in virtual reality or mixed reality, it's gonna be changed big time because audience can pick and choose. So it's totally different paradigm, right? So we need to train our students differently. So screenwriting will be different, filmmaking will be different. It's all different thing. Of course, change is afraid. No one want to do it. However, as a filmmaker, I think that's our duty to do. So some people thinking it is good, it's a different, but it's a good opportunity. And then some people really thinking it's just brand new language we should learn from. Some of you guys already mentioned about China. We should learn about China, right? I'm Korean. Now I'm Canadian, but originally came from Korea, right? So again, I do understand Asian culture, and then I live in North America. I say 10 years, now 6 years in Canada. I kind of understand both worlds, right? Same. I was a filmmaker, I was an animator, VFX artist, and also game maker. So I can in and out all different sectors. So I have a little bit of view there. So experience making. It is something I should be thinking in 10 years. This will be not a mainstream, but can be very strong dark horses out there in terms of filmmaking. So people thinking, oh, the VR is gonna be take over the filmmaker at the current cinema. I don't think so. I believe current cinema filmmaking will be existing as the same big brothers. However, there's a certain film that might be better making in virtual reality or mixed reality style, right? So again, think about it. Painting is still existing. Movie didn't eat up them, right? So TV is still there, even though movie is big, right? So again, it will be another stream. New breed is gonna be happening. I don't know if you guys remember this thing. Way back then, 2006, we have something like Toshiba had a dome projector. No one remembers it, right? However, in 10 years later, we have a ILM X Lab. Someone who worked at ILM before, ILM has a top talent in whole world. Visual effects start from the Lucasfilm and Division of Industrial Light and Magic. They are top guys in terms of CGI and create the whole visual effect. However, they don't want to stop there. They want to embracing the new technology, which is virtual reality and mixed reality. They combine everything together. So actually they make new film, new experience, right? So it's a teaser. So what you're gonna see right now is, just imagine many of you guys wear the glasses. No one knows what kind of look it is, what Magic Leap has, but we assume it's similar to Microsoft HoloLens, little bigger than maybe your glasses. But when you wear it, you're gonna scan everything right now as this thing. And then, based on that data, they're gonna have a CG character moving around and interact with you. So This fridge is like their demo, so I'd like to show this thing to you guys.
Oh, might I have a word with you, please? I regret to report that due to unforeseen circumstances, we have not yet reached the desired arrangement with Jabba the Hutt regarding Captain Solo's death. An army of stormtroopers is searching for us. It can only be a matter of time before we are blasted into spare parts. I told you it was dangerous here. We have not yet completed the mission. How did we get into this mess? I really don't know how.
So there's a filmmaker already start to embracing this technology for their advantage. And this is really exciting. So now we have a chance to storytelling in immersive medium in here. So it could be virtual reality, augmented reality, or mixed reality, right? So isn't something new? I don't think so. As a filmmaker, we have been combined story with technology. So it is in our DNA. It's our duty, and that's what we need to do. So many of you guys came from the school. So many of you guys came from industry. I think some of your portion, your profit or time, we need to invest for this new baby out there. Give them some nurture. You need to raise this thing out. So it is still early stage in terms of virtual reality and mixed reality, in terms of filmmaking. In game side, it's big. I mean, again, we talk about money again. Gaming revenue actually exceeding the movie industry now. They make way more money than movie. That doesn't mean movie is gonna die. However, now it's our turn to actually start a new thing. I mean, how many Fast and Furious we need to see it? How many sequel for Transformer I need to see it? Although I work for the Transformer, right? How many Star Wars series we need to look at it, right? So Hollywood or filmmaker, we need to really thinking about new way to tell our story or making a new experience. So I like to end my talk with my favorite quote from John Lester. So he always says, arts challenge technology and technology inspire the art. When John Lester started, do you remember those Luxor Jr. when the lamp was jumping around? It's in 1986, he started to make CG animation. Thinking about 1980s, Disney's 2D feature film was ruling the entire world. Little Mermaid, Lion King, you name it, Aladdin, right? Whenever they make the film, it's going to be selling billions of dollars out there. And one guy who traditionally trained at cat art and even worked for the Disney, he said, oh, I want to make CG animation. And everyone was like, oh, what? Why you need to make CG animation? Because our animation is already good. And we are having fun, good time out there. And this guy, no, we're going to make the CG animation. It's a feature. Look at now, 20 years later. How many times ever you saw the feature animation in movie theater recently? 0 time, right? No one make the 2D feature animation anymore. Everyone just go to the 3D, right? Again, story is still there, right? Pixar focus on the story. That's a key element there. Basically, what I want to say right now here is, we have a fundamental, we have a tradition, we have the story here, right? Bring that thing to the new technology. It can be augmented reality, virtual reality, or mixed reality. However, when you're embracing new technology, you can have new opportunity to make the good story or new experience or make extra money, right? Why not? So I hope I haven't met every one of you guys yet, but I'm willing to talk about this matter because this is what I'm passionate about, combining art and technology and create the opportunity. Either it can be CG animation or game or virtual reality or mixed reality. So my bottom line is our student, since I'm teaching at university, our student born in 2000. In 2 years later, I'm going to have a student born in 2000, after 2000. That means someone who born in 21st century. For them, world is totally different. They raise with like internet, they raise with iPad or like handheld device. Their mindset is totally different. For their game, even in my class, students play the game, right? Game is their life, right? There's totally digitalized kid out there. So we need to have a new approach, right? Animated sound is important, someone is passionate about. I'm supporting it. However, someone who's really willing to embracing the future is out there, and that's what we need to do. As a filmmaker, as an educator, and then also someone who's working in industry, we need to really give them a chance. This new technology or new genre or new medium. So we can experiment with more, actually create a new standard out there. That's what I believe in, and then I try to make it happen. All right, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for joining us. When education meets film industry. Today we have a great panel, guests from Canada, the States, and China. In the coming hour, we'll address on how aspiring filmmakers embrace the market. So let me just quickly set up the scene a little bit. The global box office, according to data from MPAA, last year was $38.3 billion US dollars. And we've seen a static growth of film market in North America, but on the other hand, we see a prosperous market growth in Asia, especially China, which just experienced a 47% growth rate in 2015 compared to 2014. So we have this very interesting market shifts globally, but we've also know there are a lot of differences in terms of film education and the trajectories of film development in different regions. So in this session, we'll address on three things. Number one, what do film education look like in different regions? Number two, what do markets look like in different regions, especially in this case, the West and the East? And number three, we'll introduce the idea of incubation, the incubation of capital, how to turn a good idea into a big movie, and the incubation in terms of talents, how to support aspiring filmmakers, maybe some of you sitting in this room, to become a successful filmmaker. So let me kick off by introducing our guests one by one. To my left, we have Mr. Sid Ganis. He's a legendary motion picture producer and have been active in this industry for more than half a century, if I'm right. He's past president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences for 4 terms. I have a quick Asper question for you. You've been worked with thousands of filmmakers in your life. What do you think is the most important feature for a young filmmaker to become a successful artist?
Well, first of all, it's shocking to hear that I have been in this industry for over 50 years. Well, you didn't even say 50 years, you said half a century. Oh my God. Frightening thought. Well, okay, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. I think I can give you a one-word answer to your question. Story. And, you know, I think we'll probably all go into it before, you know, during this hour. But that's it. It's a one-word answer. Story. And even more today than ever before. Because when I first started in this business a half a century ago, the international market, the entire international market, was 13%, 13% of the overall, you know, box office for a film. Now that international market, of course, is, who knows, all inclusive, not just China, but all inclusive is closer to 70% of the. So, therefore, what's the element that creates that kind of interest in U.S. films anyway? And the answer is story.
Okay, that's a very good word. And also on the stage, we have Mr. Zhang Huijun. He's a Chinese cinematographer and current president of Beijing Film Academy, one of the most respected higher education institutes in this field around the world. So, Mr. Zhang, a quick question for you. 可能很多人都知道，您是毕业于7、8级的这个摄影班，您的班上也出了非常多的大导演比如说像张艺谋、田壮壮，还有顾长卫。您本人也是非常资深的一个电影人。那我想问您的就是，如今现在的这个年轻电影人跟您那个时代的电影人相比，最大的不同是什么？
今天的年轻的电影人，我觉得很幸福。现在的电影环境比原来要好很多很多。我们当时毕业的时候，都在想说，什么时间能够拍上电影？作为摄影，作为导演，作为编剧，我记得我们上学的时候，我曾经就跟张艺谋感叹过，说看我们学校的一些大师哥毕业很多年，甚至20年以上才能够做上独立的摄影师和导演。所以我们当时不知道该怎么办，结果没有想到我们毕业了以后马上就能够拍上电影。再一个，我觉得今天的年轻电影人呢比我们聪明，吃的也好，生活环境也好。我们那会儿比较傻，然后穿的也比较邋遢，然后知道的东西也比较少，看的电影也比较少。但是今天的年轻人呢，我觉得看了很多不同国家的、不同文化背景的、不同导演的一些作品，我觉得对他们可能会有很大的感触和帮助。再有一个，今天的数字技术出现以后，对年轻人的一些梦想完成影像的这个道路越来越宽广。数字技术的出现，使得原来的比较繁琐、比较繁重的胶片的这种电影制作形式呢，得到了解脱，所以很多年轻人可以用不同的方式用影像来表达。但是我觉得，作为年轻人一定要注意2个问题。第一个是要学会电影工业当中的一些基本的技能和技巧，在任何情况下都能够抓住机会来展示自己的专业水平。第二个要执着，不能因为有困难。有一些技术上的一些障碍，或者资金上的一些障碍，就放弃了自己的一些想法。有了这2个，这个我觉得就可以非常好的来表达。我们中国有一句话叫"英雄不问出处"，但是英雄是永远有出处的。所以希望我们的任何国家、任何的教育背景和文化背景的年轻人呢，一定要想尽自己的办法来实现自己的电影梦想。其实在今天，我觉得这些年轻人做电影的条件和环境已经非常好了，还有这么多电影的一些前辈和电影的老师在帮助他们、教育他们，然后再提携他们，其实已经很好了。谢谢。
好，谢谢张院长。Also on the stage, we have Professor Mr. Christopher Lane. He's a Canadian film and television writer, director, and producer. Currently, the film production program coordinator at the Toronto Film School. So a quick question for you, Mr. Lane. We've heard a lot of places like Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto at the Hollywood North. And we also have a lot of festivals like Golden Panda, which draw world's attention. So as a Canadian filmmaker, my question is that, what do you think are the most distinct features for Canadian filmmakers?
Hello. Being from Toronto and visiting Vancouver and Montreal often, I can speak about Toronto. It's a very film-centric city. In other words, we welcome co-productions and productions from around the world, as well as doing our own unique stories and productions. The city itself has all the facets, all the sort of necessities to create film. It makes it easy. So any visiting productions or even our own productions, it's easier for us to get permits, to shut down streets, to costuming, weapons, training, and all of the sort of necessities. Those sort of three epicenters in Canada have really gone to great lengths to facilitate that art. So it's really fortunate to be from there.
We have Mr. Robert Lomberg. Mr. Lomberg is the COO of China Line Film Distribution, a North American distribution company dedicated to bring big-budget Chinese films from China to the rest of the world. So my question for you, Mr. Lomberg, what comes to your mind first if I ask you the differences between the Western filmmakers and the Chinese filmmakers or filmmakers from Asia?
I'm going to be terribly unoriginal and say story. I think that there's it's not bad or good. It's that there's a different narrative that we're seeing in a lot of Chinese films that appeal to a Chinese audience, and then there's a particular narrative that's appealing to a Western audience. And I'm sure we can dive into that as we go on the panel.
And hopefully you are familiar with our guests. So let's kick off from the first topic, education. Let me start from asking Mr. Zhang, since you have been years of education. So could you give us more a big picture of how the film training look like in China? You mentioned in your presentation this morning that the 最缺少的是一个好的故事，你可以展开一些吗？谢谢。
故事就不用说了，我觉得很重要的就是从事电影教育的人必须是电影业的精英，必须是做过电影的人，而不能说仅仅是学了这个学位，写了几篇文章，然后发了几篇这个评论就可以从事电影教育。这一点我觉得我们必须向美国学习。北京电影学院这点已经做到了，我们所有的老师都是从事电影创作的直接的经验者或者成功者，而且我们现在聘请大量的我的7、8班同学给学生们上课，只有这样，我们才能够教出最好的电影从业者。这点呢，我觉得我们也看到，在欧洲、在美国、在加拿大，在一些国家都是这么做，所以我觉得中国那么多电影院校一定也要这么做，才能够把中国的电影教育做上去。第二个问题呢，就是我们在整个的电影教育过程当中，我们电影学院的做法是分得比较细，就是编剧、导演、摄影、表演、美术、技术、制片非常细。这样呢，在原来的电影工业情况下是有用的。我们也在做调整，让学生有多个选项。出来以后呢，在课堂上学到的一些东西要多一点，这样能够应对他们的电影工业的对他们的要求。这样呢，我觉得可能会对老师有更高的要求，可能会对从事制片教育和出品人的教育、监制的这种教育呢，可能会要求更高。使得他们能够应对，我们在不断的调整。第三个问题呢，就是我也是希望这个年轻人呢多学一点技术，多学一点技巧和方法。现在很多年轻人都想做2个事儿，一个是当演员，第二个是当导演。其实呢没有错误，当演员可以出名，也可以挣很多钱。当导演呢，也可以出名，也可以挣很多钱，但这个不是我们的选项。我觉得应该学一点电影最基础的东西。你做了编剧，你也可以去当演员，也可以当导演，但是你还有编剧，还有故事的这个内容。但是你要学了表演，就是学了表演，可不可以做导演呢？也可以。可不可以做编剧？也可以，但是会受到一些限制。我们每一个人在生活当中都是演员，都可以演得很好。关键是演员需要修养、积累、 技巧和方法。所以我觉得，希望年轻人要多一些选项，不要有中国那个老话一棵树上吊死。那有多条道路去选，我觉得对我们有很大的帮助。
You want to say something?
Oh, yes, I do. I so heartily agree with what you just said. Really, really important. You know, yes, you can learn the industry this way. If you want to be a prop person, you can learn all about props. But if you really love the art of film, and if you want to know, not only work in the industry, but know about the art of film, then I suggest, exactly as you said, that the way to learn it is this way. Know what this industry is about, because it's a complicated world, filmmaking. You know, you filmmakers in the house know. 200 men and women come together, all with skills associated with making, shooting, editing, marketing, distributing film, come together. The more you know about the craft of filmmaking, the more complete a filmmaker you can be.
And Mr. Ling?
Yeah, I agree with my colleague here from the Beijing Film Academy, and I was so honored last year to visit your facility, and what an amazing, amazing facility, and we agree. It's important, our instructors at the Toronto Film School, our profs, our teachers, all of them, it's important that they are working individuals in the industry. We're all writers, producers, directors, grips, gaffers, distribution, the entire thing. And it's important, and only in that manner can these students understand. You know, our philosophy is at first we get them all in the same pool and learn a little bit about everything. And because when you first ask, they all want to be a director. You know, you can say, who wants to be a director? Every hand goes up. But within a few terms, you've got your cinematographers, you've got your distribution, you've got your producers. Most of them don't even have a complete understanding of what a producer is early on. And it sort of develops, and production managers and so on. So they sort of find their way. I'm sure it's much the same with in your school. They find their passion, they find their way, and they start to follow that. And I think it's really important, and that we are all in that industry. Another great aspect of it is we bring students out with us at all times. I had just gotten off a music video just prior to flying in here for a Universal music artist, and I brought like 15 of my students with me. And their jaw just dropped at seeing it at that level and the everything that went into it. So, and I brought students from an early term, so you know, some of our later term students would have already been out on stuff. So I brought some students very early in their stay with us. And you know, I think it's important that we do this kind of thing.
And Mr. Lumberg, do you have anything?
You know, it's strange. You guys are all talking about essentially my life, because I started out in going to film school at Purdue. I was it was more theory based, but I said, oh, I'm going to be a great screenwriter. I'm going to be, you know, and I got to LA and I realized I wasn't a great screenwriter. But I got to LA and I got a job at Paramount. I was in their home entertainment division. I learned more about that. I ended up working with the late great Greg Coote, which Mr. Gannis knows, for a good number of years, and I segued over to China Lion. So I actually kind of have had that entire sweeping view, and it really has allowed me to select where I want to be. And I love distribution. I love marketing. You know, if I had known now what I know then, I would have started a lot sooner. But the only way I could have done it is by learning all those various facets. And by the way, now I know I can say, you know, hey, this is a good script. I can market it this way. This is, you know, well shot. I can, you know, use these in a trailer. All of this stuff adds up. And, you know, I mean, you talk about Sid's half century, and you know, I've been doing it for now almost 20 years, And you look at that scope that you can bring to it. I hope that I can get more films out because I know all these little facets. And I'm sure everyone on the panel can agree that if you find your niche, even if it isn't being a director, even if it isn't being an actor, you're still part of an amazing process.
It's great to learn the academics of it. You got to learn that basis, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But then, as is the practice at Beijing Film Academy, you want to feel it. And you feel it from these men and women who are filmmakers, who are teaching the kids, and then take it the next step, go out into the system and feel it even more. It's emotional. Yes, it's a business, but really we're into, it's a business that's very odd. It's an emotional business in the end. It's being able to create emotionally and make a lot of money at the same time.
Well, and if no one sets out to make a bad film, and if you've got a great script and everyone's passionate about it, it just goes down the line. I can't tell you how passionate I am about a director or a producer who's passionate about their film, and they've come in with this great film because they've studied all the facets, because it's got high production values, because they've thought about how they can market it before they got started on it, because they knew that they needed to do it. And I think you look at kind of what is happening in the world, and the more you know, especially on an international scope, as you kind of mentioned, 70% plus of the market is now overseas, outside of North America. If you can just find your individual, we release Chinese language films, in North America and now the UK. That's where I live, and I love living in those spaces. But I wouldn't be able to do it without everyone else on here. I wouldn't be able to do it without the filmmakers out there.
Our conversation has mostly go to the market element from the education. So I've talked with some aspiring filmmakers. Of course, film industry is always fascinating, but it's it has a lot of competitions here. So since we've already addressed on market, what do you think what kind of talents does the market nowadays need?
Yeah, as you say, things are shifting, distribution's changing. There's all sorts of interesting possibilities at hand these days. With just the co-productions between China and North America and so on, it's interesting in our philosophies in storytelling. Storytelling is generally similar for everyone, but there's some cultural differences and so on. I recently had an experience where I was working with 25 students from Chongqing University. They had come to Toronto. Toronto is like a sister city to Chongqing, and they wanted to make a film with me, so celebrating the two cities. And I was fascinated, and we started to put this together, and this one young gentleman asked me, because I had taken this time to put this great dolly shot together, this nice extreme push into this moment where this person was gonna speak, and it took so long to set up and so on. And he asked me, why not just zoom in quickly? It gets to the point. It gets to the end result, and it occurred to me that the history of film in North America that we've been immersed in, our background, our raising, our innate understanding of film, like a Hitchcock push into a doorknob, might not resonate in the Eastern societies and so on, just because you haven't immersed in those films, nor have we in yours. And there's going to be a learning shift there, just because we've been conditioned over 150 years to understand. So films may take on for a while a more visceral content to them, context. It's interesting.
There's going to be, it's so interesting. Yes, there's going to be a learning shift, or there is a learning shift right now, and it's finding that place that allows a Chinese film by a young Chinese filmmaker and a Western film by a young Western filmmaker to intrigue an audience in the West and in the East. And I personally think it's happening now. I absolutely think it's happening. I think that I'm not an expert on Chinese filmmaking. Of course I'm not. But over the years, I've watched, many Chinese films. And now, these days, the Chinese filmmakers are not being asked to conform to the ways of the government. They're being encouraged to be like young filmmakers all over the world. Go get them, be creative, get crazy, do something unusual and wonderful. And I think that that's a big, big, big shift, part of the shift. And it's exciting the young Chinese filmmakers, and it's allowing the young Chinese filmmakers to express themselves the way you were saying, in a bigger, broader way.
Thank you, Mr. Ganis, and for Mr. Zhang. 刚才大家都说到了这个中国电影市场的蓬勃哈，也给了这个中国电影人一些机遇。您觉得对于这些有志于想要在全球一展这个抱负的中国电影人怎么样可以就是通过这个电影的教育，让他们能够真正的走向世界？
接着刚才那个问题，我也想说一点啊。现在我在北京电影学院在做一个庞大的一个教学计划，然后我跟这个去年校庆的时候，跟美国的同行、跟英国的同行，还有加拿大的同行，在不断的讲我们要做的事情。中国电影工业大家知道，大概是今年颁布了一个关于电影工业方面的一个法律，但是我们学校做的这件事呢，是我让所有的老师跟学生在充分的研究美国、欧盟、英国、加拿大，甚至各个国家的与电影有关的所有的法律。那么我们在这个过程当中是让学生能够知道，当你的一个摄制组成立以后，你摄制组要跟制片公司、投资公司、银行、风投、基金要签什么样的东西？我们当用一个演员，我跟演员工会要签什么东西？跟本人签什么？跟商业保险要签什么？然后我要当雇一个人做导演的话，我跟导演工会签什么？跟他本人签什么？这些东西实际上在我们目前中国的电影制作工业当中是很缺乏的。那么当我们不知道这些法律的所有问题的话，就会面临出现对知识产权的保护，对个人的这种名誉权的保护和利益的保护。所以这些事儿呢，我觉得我们在今天的中国电影教育当中，我觉得在我们学校我们在做这些事情。这样的根本目的是长远的在年轻的电影工业人当中建立一种法律的概念，然后使得他们在跟西方不同国家的电影工业人合作的时候，一定是了解人家的规律、规则和权利和义务。所以这个呢，我觉得是我们目前中国电影界需要解决的问题。当然说到这个年轻的电影人，其实年轻的电影人他不是说特别喜欢电影，很多人是看世界的电影产业当中哪些产业是朝阳的，他就都往那儿去。现在电影是朝阳的，所以都往电影这儿来。但是我们还是要强调，我们选学生，我们这个支持和鼓励学生呢，希望就是说你真正要热爱。像刚才这位先生说的，就是说你一定要热爱电影，你才能去做这件事儿。热爱电影不是说像谈恋爱，今天我爱我就谈这事儿，而是要长久的用自己的生命来做这件事儿。所以呢，去学校也好，跟着电影从业人员的一些有经验的一些老师也好，实际上都是要学他们对电影的这种执着和热爱。所以我们现在挑学生的时候，你光跟我说我喜欢电影不行，你打不动我，你得必须说你为什么喜欢电影，你将为喜欢电影这件事儿做多大的努力，就是花多大的功夫，这样你才能说服这个老师，这个老师才会去录取你。所以我觉得 年轻人很容易见异思迁，也很容易今天喜欢这个，明天喜欢那个。我就告诉所有的学生，就是你一定要想好了，你为什么要从事这项工作，然后你将为这项工作付出你毕生的多大的精力和多大的努力。结果不重要，过程很重要。谢谢。
Very nice comment. And Professor Lin, you want to add some comments? I saw you want to add some comments on this.
Oh, no, I just wholeheartedly agree. And if you don't love this industry, as we all know up here, and many of you, why would we be doing it, right? It's too hard, it's difficult. I had a prof many years ago say it's a miracle that anything ever gets made. And it is certainly a marathon sprint or marathon to the end line.
Yeah. And in the end, very often very satisfying. Absolutely. And in the end, sometimes very often very not satisfying.
And then you want to do it again.
That's right. Absolutely.
And Mr. Zhang have already mentioned a lot that how Chinese film schools, the industry are learning the Hollywood model, learning North American mechanism. As an American producer, do you feel a little bit threat, or you feel it's a good challenge, or what do you think?
People tell me all the time, it's a really interesting question. The answer is no, I don't feel it as a threat. But some of my colleagues say, hey, they're going to put you out of business. The Chinese filmmakers are learning from you and they're going to put you out of business. Well, I don't agree with that at all. I think what the president of the Film Academy has said is true. There's a lot to be learned, and we happen to have, some really good information based on, now 120 or 30 years of experience as filmmakers that we're willing to share with the rest of the world because we are a global storytelling industry. We are a global storytelling industry. And our films, US films or North American films or Western films, have to play elsewhere in the world, not just in the East, but, comfortably in Spain, comfortably in France, comfortably in Japan. So, what we know, I am willing to impart to my Chinese, brethren who are, like myself, in love with film and filmmakers.
We talk about the market, then we talk about the incubation. So let's start from the capital incubation. We all know that the Chinese have a lot of money, the capital here, but what do you think are some opportunities for a really good story to be incubated as feature films?
Well, again, I think you said it at the beginning of this. You said you have to, something like you have to never give up. You have to keep at it. Even when people are telling you, no, it can't be done. I think you were saying that the young filmmakers have to believe and be passionate about what they're wanting to do, and that then allows them, I think, to penetrate this massive market, incubate in this massive market. But there are two parts to it, One of them is creativity, of course, having the good story. We're all agreed, having the good story. And the other one is tenacity. Don't give up, ever. Just keep at it.
And the word story, that's my question for all of you guys. So what are some criteria as a producer when you pick up a script, a story? What kind of stories will stand out?
I'll tell you exactly what kind of story. Everybody here is laughing because, of course, the answer is who knows?
Zhang, you agree on that?
说到孵化啊，这个中国现在开玩笑说最不缺的是什么？钱。在整个的电影工业当中，实际上刚才说了一个故事创意， 是很重要的。我刚才在前面我介绍了电影学院的一些做法，我们的孵化就是说，我鼓励学生在自己的作业当中，你最想做什么，你跟老师讨论，然后老师觉得你这个几个老师讨论都觉得你这个创意很好，我们就鼓励他，让他按照课程的作业完成。完成的这个东西呢，可能是5分钟的或者10分钟的。我学校给他的孵化就是所有的设备随便用 ，free， 免费的。你只要填了单子，你就可以进实验室，你就可以用设备，用摄影机，用剪接，用特效，用字幕，用录音棚，可以照明也可以。然后呢，他这个东西交完作业以后，我们老师认为他仍然是不错的，那我们就鼓励他把这个故事要不断的放大，最后去参加4年级的毕业联合作业。毕业联合作业他就要提交片名、梗概、大纲，然后他在众多的学生毕业作业当中能够说服所有的老师，然后感动所有的老师，让他觉得他用语言能够给我们讲了一个非常好的故事，而且他有前面那个作业短篇作业，然后我们就再扶持他，再扶持呢，再孵化他，就是说他要完成一个20分钟或者30分钟的一个微电影短篇作业。同样，所有的设备，所有的东西你随便，我还给他们钱现金。原来这个钱拿来是让他们买底片和正片的，现在不用，直接给他们。然后呢，我们还有一项措施，就是所有的老师必须跟踪这个毕业联合作业，就是派一个编剧的老师，派一个导演的老师，派一个摄影的老师，派一个美术的老师，派一个录音的老师，派一个后期特效制作的老师，跟着这些学生。我还要求这些学生，你不允许你找外面的从业人员，必须找同学校的、同一年级的，甚至同班的学生去做这个东西。做完以后，我们最后要有毕业作业的联合毕业作业的评选，都是20分钟到30分钟的。然后我们觉得这个作业还好，还不错，我们第3次孵化就是从社会上找来的公募资金、私募基金，还有基金，还有扶持的捐款，然后让学生把它做成一个标准的超过90分钟的一个院线电影。同样，所有的设备随便用，学校对你能支持的就是所有最先进的设备你随便用，你只要填了单子就可以用。我们仍然派很多的老师在跟踪他，不管这个学生是即将毕业或者是已经毕业，我们用这种方式。到目前为止，我们已经做了10多部这样的片子，而且很多片子都挣了钱。挣了钱呢，是给投资方返还他的钱，剩下的盈余部分，我跟投资方说，你不要给学校，你给这些学生发一些酬金，对他的一种奖励和肯定，然后这些学生就会再去做别的电影。我们的孵化是用这一套严格的系统，就是3、5分钟的一个短片，30分钟左右的一个短片，然后在90分钟的长片，用3级跳的方式完成他们的这种孵化。钱不重要，人很重要，体制很重要。你用这种方法派更多的老师，然后只要有很少的一部分钱就能撬动这个事情。特别是在中国，对高校的政府对高校的要求是，你的设备尖端的设备是不允许投资的。但是我想到了一个办法，我的这些设备是允许支持学生的，所以你们就去随便用，这样对他们就是一个很大的帮助。
Mr. Zhang just mentioned a lot of privileges of being a film student in Beijing Film Academy. So what does education program here in, let's say, Toronto Film School, what kind of opportunities are given to students here?
Very similar in cases. We call these our thesis films, where a student throughout their stay with us has gone through the writing process, producer's notes back and forth, rewrites many times. They've all found their sort of niche. So the producers are working with the production managers and the directors and so on, and they're pulling together all the pre-production involved. So there's several terms of the pre-production, all of the paperwork, all of the permits, city permits. We have a great amount of equipment and transport available to us and so on. And that's all put together, and then the students go and facilitate the production, and then we go through the entire post area. And these films have gone on to great success. We've had films in Cannes, many of the other great film festivals around the world, and it's been very exciting. So, I mean, very similar to your academy. We encourage the students and them all to follow their path and collaborate together, because as we all know, it's not a one-person show here at all. It takes a great many individuals to put together any product.
Obviously, the opportunities are always there, but what are some challenges or something that you think we can improve in film education?
There's always the funding aspect. I mean, students, they come and they have amazing ideas, and at all times you can't pull off the ideas. They think $300 million budget, and there's a process of, you know, I don't want to say peeling back that, but there's that moment where you explain the business, you start to understand the business, to producers, to with the materials you have at hand, what can you, and it comes down to story, as we've all said.
Yeah.
If once you build from story out, I think you're safe.
And as the president said, you've made 11 films, I think you said, up to now. There must be 1,100 students who would like to make movies out of the academy, but you know, you just can't do it. So the challenge is that challenge related to competition. You know, something has to be chosen. It's very hard to choose, but eventually you have to make that decision, and then the others have to keep on going. So the challenge is to keep on going.
That backs to the idea of stories. So, Mr. Lundberg, as working for the distribution company, do you have a criteria, let's say, as a distributor, if not a producer?
You know, it's strange. We've distributed every single type of genre in the past. We just celebrated our 6th anniversary, and you know, it's what's good and what's bad. I mean, we live in an age where social media will immediately tell you if the film itself is good, and I'll know if the film opens on Friday. I'll know by Friday, like noon, whether or not it's going to be a hit or not. I know Monday whether or not I'll be able to keep theaters for another week, and I'll know probably you know, even before that whether or not the film's going to be profitable based on our projections. And so. But if it's a good story, I'll be able to look at my grosses on Saturday that'll be bigger than Friday. I'll be able to look at the entire weekend and know how many screens I'll be able to hold over, because social media has said, this is a great film, go out and see it. Now, from a kind of an incubation standpoint or an education standpoint, you know, as Sid said, you know, no one knows what the actual points are. I would love to figure that out, and it's if anyone has any ideas, please let me know. But it's read scripts, watch movies. You know, I know there's some perils that Ellen alluded to, which I would absolutely agree with, but there are plenty of internships where you get on there. We in our office alone, we have every quarter or every term we have 3 internships. You know, we're more than happy to sit down with each of those interns to make sure that they're there, that they understand what we're doing. They're involved in all businesses, and it's plentiful. And if you can go online and kind of cobble together your own education, even if you're not able to afford college, even if you're not able to, get into the program you want, even if you're in a field and maybe you're not as passionate about it, but you're really passionate about this and you want to explore it. There's so many free ways to do that where, yes, money can be an issue, but it's not actually required. And then, the second thing to add to that is we are in an age where, and I'm sure Christopher would know more about this than I, but we're in an age where it's never been cheaper to make a film, and if you look at just the materials involved, I mean, even from a distribution standpoint, we used to have to ship around, 35 millimeter reels, and now it's on this little hard drive that costs us, a hundredth of the cost when you factor in all the outstanding issues. All of that, you are able to learn the business if you take a hands-on approach, and you are able to get an education based on what's available online. And internships are an easy way to do that, and especially I would imagine in Vancouver and Toronto and Los Angeles, and even in smaller cities, where there is a filmmaking community, just involve yourself. And I think too many times people may not push on that front, and they should.
Hey, Robert, I have a question, actually.
Sure.
Is there more of a market today in North America for Chinese language films, or is it still rather limited?
No, it's strange. From year to year, we've seen major increases in our revenue, and we've increased. When we first started playing films, we would be in 10 to 20 locations throughout North America, all of North America, and now we've seen some of our competitors go a little wider than we do, but on average, you can look at anywhere between 50 and 100 screens, which is it's a huge increase when you consider the dates. And I also think it goes back to story too. Is if that learning process is happening both in China and both here in North America, you're going to see stories that appeal to a broader, diverse range. And our audience is primarily Chinese students coming here to study. And when they come here to study, they're learning about our culture and the way we're telling storytelling, and they're sharing. It's a two-way street that is resulting in a lot of sharing that I think will create those great stories that will appeal to an even bigger audience, and perhaps audiences that may not know enough about Chinese culture, Chinese language, Chinese stars. So I think it's happening, and it's just a matter of time before you see those types of films that are really, really, really going to cross over.
There's a whole world out there that Westerners really don't know about.
It's
the world of China.
It's staggering. I think the audience may not realize how much of the Western world is, and I say this with love because I probably can include myself in it, ignorant of the Chinese culture, the Chinese, everything that is Chinese, and there's so much to learn. Of course. And once that happens, once you hit that precipice, it's going to be, open the floodgates.
Okay, we've already collected a lot of questions from the audience, so let me just try to ask several before we go to the lunch. So one audience asked, with more and more international collaborations happening among filmmakers and studios, it seems like it's becoming increasingly important for filmmakers to share the similar kind of vision of filmmaking. So she or he was wondering, what are your thoughts of filmmakers better integrating into the global film industry without compromising cultural identity or certain values?
Well, I can give you an experience I had that might answer your question. So when you introduced me, you said I used to be the president of the Academy. I was. And at the Academy, there is a program called the International Outreach Program. And what that's all about is about Academy members. Now, all Academy members are filmmakers. Every Academy, 7,000 filmmakers around the world, some aspect of filmmaking. Well, we had the opportunity to visit Vietnam, to work with Vietnamese filmmakers and teach them and help them through a program, through a mutual program. When we got there, I was not on this trip, but when we got there, we discovered that Vietnamese filmmakers doing commercial movies really didn't understand the very basic issue of synchronized sound, of sync sound. They just didn't know it. It wasn't in their filmmaking, process. So aside from being pretty astounded by that, the Academy guys went home, and about 3 months later, a group of sound men and women went back to Vietnam and actually taught the Vietnamese filmmakers the practical aspects of sync sound, and now it's a way of life as it is all over the world. So I think that answers part of your question. We want to share our knowledge with anybody who needs our knowledge.
And Mr. Lin, you want to add some?
Well, I mean, I was just thinking, with the opening of the cross collaborations and so on, how we will tell stories and how we will share and tell stories and work together. And I think there's that language of cinema, what shots mean to us, what that we've been conditioned through in Eastern and Western societies and so on, and then there's just a language barrier, our communications and so on. So I think there's going to be a while, and if you look back through the history of film, certain things, there's moments, political and cultural and so on, where you can draw from those periods and look at this period, maybe 25 years from now, and we'll see films that will take on a more maybe action-based, more visceral, more look and tone to it for a while as we assimilate and start to understand each other and work together collaboratively. So I think it's an exciting time for everyone. You know what I mean? Like.
Mm-hmm. Let's do one more question for our audience. So this audience asks, from what I see now, it seems like most co-productions are happening between major film studios and companies. At least when it comes to partner with China, what do you think are the choices left for independent filmmakers other than entering competitions, especially considering most recent graduates are starting from the scratch? Do you have any advice for the young filmmakers out there who want to reach out to film professionals with different backgrounds?
其实我还接着刚才说那个，就是这个合作拍戏哈。合作拍戏，我觉得现在在中国现在基本上是几种方式，一种是合作双方各自拿本国家的版权，发行版权，然后全球的票房，然后再合作双方再去分。还有一种就是各自国家的我们都不要算，就把全球的所有的这个票房的最后的总数，然后我们双方分。这两种方式都是在目前中国合作拍摄当中都是经常用的，但是这里边就有一个判断，就是谁的判断是准确的。我们知道现在美国的有些电影在美国本土可能票房不是很好，但是可能在中国就特别好，比如说《魔兽》，那么可能在北美票房好的，可能在中国的票房不一定好。这里就有一个判断，市场判断的问题。所以我觉得这种合作呢，可能要听更多的市场发行的建议和制片人的建议，甚至这个出品人的一些建议，才能够做好。独立电影人现在目前在中国投的特别好，我不知道在英国或者在加拿大或者在美国是一个什么样。中国我们都知道电影当中有一个28定律，所谓28定律就是投10部片子以后，可能有2部是挣钱的，3部是平的，剩下5部是亏的。但是我跟他们分析了一个，就是说，如果你拿5000万人民币投10个500万的小成本电影，跟赌牌是一样的，只要这俩赢了，这5000万都回来。如果说那3个是平了，那你基本上就是打平，没事儿。所以呢，我们说28定律的概念是很对的，就是说做小成本的，然后只要有2个赢了，这些成本就都回来。 我们还落一个什么呢？我们落一个你是资助者，是慷慨解囊的人，你扶持了这些年轻人，这些年轻人很有可能感激你一辈子，甚至这几个成功的年轻人可能成为我们公司的一个今后的一个非常重要的一个成员，他甚至可能为你拍几年戏，因为你在第一步的时候帮助了他，所以这就叫中国的话叫以小博大。所以在这种情况下，我觉得我们更多的是要关注独立的电影人、独立的制片人，关注小成本，这样我觉得才可能赢得天下。
Any quick
Yeah,
comments on that?
I wholeheartedly agree. It's an exciting time to be a filmmaker early in your career. As you're stating that, we no longer have to, the great costs of like 35 mil film and all of that, that's not a big concern with us anymore. So I believe what you're talking is like for the independent filmmakers to get to build like a slate of films, right? To have 5 or 6 films that they're about to make. You hope a couple will hit, you hope a couple break even, and you don't ever hope to lose, but it's a bigger business. Like you put together 5 or 6 projects at once. I believe that's what you're alluding to.
With that point, we end our panel with a very promising picture. So to my audience, please thank our panel for this great panel. It's a real pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so welcome back. We have a all-star panel this afternoon for you. We have Mr. Siganis again join us, very grateful. And we have 4 new panelists. Mr. Benjamin, we have from UK, and we have Professor Alan Seiter from USC in the States. We have Professor Kim from Emily Carr, and last but not the least, we have Ms. Huang Lian from ChinaFilm.com. So this afternoon, we'll go over a very exciting topic, technology, and how technology have shift, and how technology help shape the film industry we are now having. So this afternoon, we'll go over 3 things. First, we want to start with some nuts and bolts of the so-called core values or traditional values of filmmaking that we carry from generation to generation, if we do have that. And secondly, we'll talk about the technology. So we'll elaborate a little bit more about the historical development of technology throughout the history of film. And the third point is that we want to connect technology and the core values. Is there a marriage between these 2 things, or they are always confronting each other? Where I'm very looking forward if there's a debate among our panelists, or you have the same ideas. Okay, so let's kick off from the first thing, the traditional values.
The traditional values begin with, that famous word that we've been using today, the story of the movie. I think that's the most traditional value. The other part of it is it's about, it involves technology 100 years ago of film going through a camera and capturing an image. It's a traditional value. It's what it's about. The virtual reality discussion we had, and I know we're going to talk about it later, is the extension of that traditional value.
What do you think?
I think that there is another traditional value in this, which is to do with something called drama. And drama is the way that humans model the world. We are model-making creatures, and children play to model the world. Adults don't have the time to do that because they're busy raising children. And so we pay the players to play the play. Now, there is an economy of scale from theatre to film, but I think that what we are doing when we engage with film, or a stage play, or television, or indeed in a virtual reality, is we are dramatizing. And I think that's something that we need to keep our eye upon.
It's really a combination of very specific storytelling techniques that have to do with taking thematic material, maybe a moral lesson or something about the world, and tying that very closely to a couple of main characters, a central conflict, and a way of organizing time and space in the story so that there is nothing extraneous. So when you take apart a classic Hollywood film, everything that's there is there for a reason. And at every point in the film, scene to scene, you know where you are, where you're going next, what's the next point. So it boils down to things so simple as at the end of every scene, they'll say, and I have to do this thing by, 3 days from now it's due, or I'll see you at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then they're walking in the door and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Every little piece of dead space is cut out, and every minor character is there exactly to reflect something in a main character. And this is what takes a great deal of time to come up with a script and a structure like this. So one of the ways that Hollywood films are so good at conveying a theme is by really boiling things down to a couple of main characters, central conflict, 3-act structure. And as I've said, it's this dealing with time and space. It's life with all the dead and extraneous parts cut out, all the boring bits cut out. It's a real art. And those are some of the challenges for something like virtual reality, where things like handling time and space are going to be radically different.
Is that unique to American films, that concept of 3 acts and everything not tying together, but everything leading to the next event?
The very tight structure where every single thing that's there is there for a reason. So as a viewer, if there's a statue or a shoe or a doctor's appointment or something, it's there for a reason. It ties in for a reason. That is a precise effect of the American studio system.
American cinema.
Yeah.
It's different in European cinema. I know it is.
Leisurely. Yeah, it's more leisurely. There's more time to kind of go off in other directions.
Some people would say, thank goodness.
And to Professor Kim.
To me, traditional, that doesn't mean it's bad. However, it's very linear to me. So far, what difference from reading the book and then watching the current movie, right? The experience, as I mentioned before, hasn't been changed that much last 100 years, right? We have a more advanced way to distribute the movie. Like for example, movie become a DVD and V-Ray, so we can consume at home, or we can watch through the internet, like Netflix at home and that kind of stuff. So in terms of distribution, it changed a lot and it developed a lot. However, in terms of storytelling, the narrative based on the filmmaking hasn't been changed that much. That's why virtual reality or mixed reality in terms of that kind of filmmaking is totally different because it has a multifacet, right? As when you get into the virtual reality, you have a choice. It's not passive experience. You can actually be there active. You can pick and choose what you wanted to see. And then think about in the future when AI really develops further, then with AI, with the virtual reality, when you get into it, there are multiple storyline going to be happening. When you go to one room, it leads to another storyline. So it become a multi-story combined together, and then viewer or audience can experience by their own face a new world, right? So again, to me, traditional value is going to be stay there. It doesn't matter in the future. However, it's another type of language, another type of genre or medium.
因为我说实话，我不是一个电影方面的研究的一个专家， 我呢是想作为一个喜欢看电影的影迷的这样一个心态来聊这一件事情，所以说说到这个核心传统价值，我不知道什么时候这个剧情或者叫故事或者叫演技已经成为一种传统价值，我认为它从来就是核心的，就是绝不可或缺的，甚至是最重要的价值。所以最开始我看到咱们这个主题，他说是需要 be preserved 啊，我说怎么什么时候它就要变成要被保存了呢？它难道不是一直在那里存在着吗？而且它一定会永久存在在那里。所以如果说怎么样来让这个价值发挥到更好，是不是可以考虑，比如说，因为咱们从上午就一直这几位嘉宾都有聊到故事，就是或者刚才这位本杰明先生也说到了剧情。那么我是对这个戏剧也是非常情有独钟的，所以我觉得有可能的是，我们从文学的这个土壤去吸取营养，去找寻这个我们的一些素材或者叫什么，因为很多经典的很好的电影全都是改编自非常好的，比如说小说这样子。那么我觉得我们如果我想到的就是从这一点上，也许我们能做一些尝试，或者是继续的努力。
And I guess the person who set up this question, he is thinking about maybe 20 years later, because maybe he read an article which I just read about the artificial intelligence, about acting. So if, as Professor Kim talked about, there's still a lot of space in terms of VR technology to preserve the storytelling, what about the artificial intelligence acting? Will that actually change the traditional way of acting for an actor?
I mean, it depends to me, because since we haven't been there yet, however, even right now, think about it, when I worked in visual effect industry, many times the actors actually acting be in front of blue screen, right? And then there's no even another actors. We have a cardboard with Star Wars, whatever character there, right? And then you acting toward cardboard, right? So again, it requires the actors even more creative, right? Because you don't really interact with another actor, right? So in terms of AI, although you saw those the Go players fight against the AI, and then AI beat those Go players now, right? So if AI goes further, it can. I don't know how many people watch the Westworld right now out there, right? Westworld, right? Because we talking about first industrial revolution. It's one thing about robotic, and then AI, right? So this AI, the crazy computer programming combined with robotic, and then storytelling combined, then actually the Westworld situation might be happen, right? You can go elsewhere, some type of theme park, and you interact with robot, and then the way you choose, the way you meet per person, it actually leads you to a totally different storyline, right? So again, actors will be there. However, it can be I cannot really say replaced by the robot. However, it might be happen, right? So there's something maybe more than 40 years later, but it might be happen.
I wanted to just pick up on that because I just taught a 3-hour class on Westworld yesterday at USC before coming up here. I think we're in a kind of paradoxical time at USC. There's a great deal of emphasis on learning VR. And much to my dismay as a historian and critic and scholar, we just dropped a whole requirement for the production students to learn film history because the production department feels that there is so much to learn about digital post-production that they can't do it. So they dropped 6 units off of the criticism and history courses because they're just we have so much to teach them about digital post-production, we can't do it. One of the things, obviously, about VR that is challenging in terms of acting is the director can't be there when you're shooting it. I mean, this is quite a dilemma in terms of eliciting good performances. I know some young filmmakers who like cast themselves as extras, so they're walking around with a hidden headset while they're shooting the VR, but they still can't impact, you know, what's going on. So that I see that as kind of limiting. And I just, you know, we seem to have opposing tendencies. On the one hand, these new technologized forms, closer to, you know, video games, something like, you know, when we have these stories that branch out, it is basically like the kids' books, Choose Your Own Adventure. And I'm not sure that every story has 5 different equally good plot lines that you could do. So that's one tendency, is to do that kind of exploratory thing. But the other tendency, which is very much with us, is binging on high quality, very tightly woven narratives like something like Westworld, like the HBO series and things like that. These are extremely well-crafted stories where every part of it is laid out, and or something like a Netflix original series where people sit down and watch the whole thing in, you know, 8 to 10 hours. That's a desire for a highly constructed narrative that someone has perfected for you, you know, where all the elements are organically related to each other. That's quite different. It's really kind of the opposite of the these things where you're choosing interactive and you're choosing which plot to go on, or some of these newer technologies where there's less, you know, I mean, a lot of the VR stuff's very short, or one take, or things like that.
I'd like to throw something into the mix. I have a very strong feeling that AI will not replace human beings, nor will it replace actors. There's a special place in my heart for human actors, and it will always be there. But the point about AI, robots, and AI characters is that they can only fulfill the role of what we call a non-player character in a game. They can't respond in a fully human way to a human being. They can be pre-programmed to look like they do that. And there are software programs out there which are desperately trying to pretend to you that they're human, but you spot them within 5 minutes of conversing with them. Nobody yet has produced a piece of software that will pass what's called the Turing test, named after Dr. Alan Turing, recently memorably played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And the Turing test is, can you convince a human participant that they're talking to a human being? And we haven't done that yet, and I doubt that we will be able to do that. The same's true with the representation of humans in film. We're all familiar with CGI films where the humans do not quite look human. It's called the uncanny valley. It has its own name. It's that uncanny feeling that things are not quite right. Now, we're getting there, but between the representation of humans in terms of an image, in terms of their behavior, in terms of body language, of communication, of use of real language, I don't think AI is ever going to replace human beings. The other thing I want to say is, because we're talking about virtual reality a lot, virtual reality is an entirely new medium. It's not film, it's not theatre, and we don't know quite what it is yet. So we're experimenting with it using the paradigms that we already have. We used to call motor cars horseless carriages because we didn't have a paradigm for a motor car. We just had to call them what was before. Right? And that's where we are with virtual reality. Now, at the moment, we're treating the audiences for virtual reality as audiences, i.e. passive receptors of an experience or an event or a story. But my gut feeling as a theatre maker, and with a background in devising and improvisation, is that we're going to be synthesizing not just narrative experiences, but play and games. And if you want to participate in that, then you're going to have to become an actor. You're going to have to learn to play again, like you did when you were a kid, right? And pretend to be somebody else in order to experience the experiences that VR can offer. That is several years away yet, and requires the attention of a new generation of users, of a different audience. So it's my kids, or possibly even their kids, who are going to go down that line.
Do you have any comments on this?
Only that I think the very last thing you said about inspire, it will inspire a new generation of users is a key to it all. That new generation will be available, I would say, to take on that role. And I think everything we're talking about now has to do more with the new generation of users than it does with any of us sitting up here. And
old people.
Oh, any of us, you know, vets sitting up here. But the world, using virtual reality, since that was a main topic here, it's just as you said, it's brand new. It's brand new. It is more like film than it is like theater, I must say. What's that?
I have to disagree.
You disagree? Good. Yeah. You know, it's because you shoot it with a camera on a set with actors and then with non-actors. So I just see, I feel it more like a film technique than theatrical technique, than pure theater technique. But it's new. It doesn't matter what I think. It's this new thing. And I think that Spielberg's admonition up there was fantastic. I hadn't heard it before. He said, be careful, everybody. You know, there is an author, there is a story to be told, and the author knows that story, and the filmmaker knows that story. So to put it into the audience's hands is odd. All he's saying is be careful. I think he's right. Be careful.
So we talk about AR, we talk about VR, AR, and AI, but actually technological revolution is definitely not a new idea. It happens with the history of film. So how, compared to the old ages of all the different critical junctures when we turn from the black and white film to colorful films, when we turn from silent to sound, and now we have 3D, we have all the technologies. What do you think is the biggest difference?
Can I?
Sure.
Can I? I just want to say, since, again, you're the one who introduced me the way you did last panel, as an old guy in this industry, when I first started all those years ago, the technique for putting the pictures together, film editing, was done on a certain kind of a piece of equipment. Some of you know it, if only by name and history, called a moviola. It was a machine that did the job. You cut picture and sound, and you eventually put all those things together, and you had a movie. It's the same today, only there's no such thing as a moviola, of course, and we're doing the same thing that we did back then on a technologically incredibly modern piece of equipment that gives the filmmaker, the director, his editor, choices, just the way you had choices on a moviola, but to get to those choices, it's either easier or harder, depending on how you feel about the technology. But it's still the same means to an end. So at least on that front, the technology of editing and putting a film together, although incredibly modern, has the same quest, which is to make a great little piece that will move an audience.
The one thing about the move in the last couple decades to heavily new technology-driven effects in movies and things like that is it does have to do with the global audience. It has to do with having films that you can export and that have a draw because they have fantastic, new effects that nobody's ever seen in them. It goes with this globalization of the film industry. That being said, we have to remember that many new technologies for film were left by the wayside. You got to remember things like smell-o-rama from the 1950s. There's a lot of losers in new technologies, and they don't all stick around forever. I do think that there's a kind of dichotomy in the audience, and it has to do with people who play video games and people who don't play video games. And people who play video games and exist in that world are more excited by things like virtual reality. There's a gender gap there, and I think that extends to the audience. And I think that has to be said, that it is that there's an affinity for things like virtual reality and augmented reality by the same audience part that buys video games. And there's also an issue, there is this issue around, there's this line of both enthusiasts and developers that goes video games, cinema with AR, VR, et cetera. And those are often the people who are in charge of the biggest budget movies. So, but I think that my experience is that a lot of women directors, women film students, et cetera, are not dying to make the next VR film.
That's the thing, like right now, AI or like virtual reality filmmaking hasn't studied that much right now. But let's talk about motion capture, right? So when motion capture started at animation industry, as a former animator, we are like, that's not animation, because that's a data, right? Captured by the program. How can we call that as a animation, right? So as actors actually played Gollum or Lord of the Rings, right? Although he acting it out, we got data. We pour the data onto the CG character. So who is gonna get Academy Award for best kind of actor? Is a Gollum or the person who actually played the Gollum in motion capture room, right? So that kind of question in filmmaking has been already out there. Like, is it really acting or is it computer generated data, right? It's actually happening right now. But now in film industry, VFX industry, we actually embracing the motion capture as a part of like filmmaking, right? So again, what I'm talking today is it's like 20 years, maybe 10 years ahead, right? We are like, it's still baby. Virtual reality filmmaking is still baby, new genre. As you said, we need to like experiment with more and create our new film language out there. However, it has a huge potential, and as a filmmaker, we should support this new kind, new breed. And again, you're right, there's a generation gap. Someone who born after 1990, someone who grew up with the game, their point of view is very different than us. So in the future, it's their world. So these guys are gonna make something very different.
I think it's also fair to say that the gender gap is changing too. That the figures for girls playing games has gone up and up and up and is reaching parity. So 10 years ago, boys played games more than girls, but that is not the case anymore. So that generation of girls who play games also have a better understanding of being in those animated worlds and move into VR as artists in a different way. So again, this is, we're rolling over. At the beginning of the 21st century, we're rolling over. And that brings me to a thought about technology. Every shift in technology, whether it's in film or anywhere else, creates both a group of people who want to take it forward, who are very excited by it, and a group of people who are very scared by it and who don't like it and want it not to have happened. And then the rest of us are somewhere in the middle, watching both groups to try and decide which way we jump. So that's where we are with virtual reality. That's where we were with 3D a few years ago. That's where we were with colored movies at a certain point, or even sound in films. So these are jumping points, and we're in a jumping point now.
That's where we were with digital presentation, not more than, 10, 12 years ago, something like that. It'll never work, is what we heard. No, you can't do that. You can't do it that way. We have to do it the way we've been doing it. There's something I wanted to say about technology that is the reverse of what we're talking about now, the value of the new technologies. And it has to do with film preservation. I'm so sorry to hear that USC has abandoned that history of film course. I'm not kidding. That's not a good thing. But along with that, film preservation has become a really key and important part of what's been happening in film these days. I just heard an astounding story about Satyajit Ray's Apu trilogy. So 3 movies, Indian movies from the 50s and 60s, I think, somewhere in there, that were stored at a lab in India. And that lab had a devastating fire happen, and the films and the elements of the movie were burnt to a crisp, only not quite to a crisp. And for 20 years, they first sat in India, and then the government gave it to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and it sat on the shelves of the Academy for 20 years, until a company in Germany, I think in Berlin, came to the Academy and said, let us have a look at this, and maybe we can do something with it. And the first film of that series, Patha Panchali, was given to this lab in Germany, and they showed us pictures of what the film looked like. It was like burnt to a crisp. They got to it, and they were able to somehow extract the stuff of that movie, the elements of that movie, and recreate the movie, and now that movie is restored, completely restored, and looks great. Digitally, yes, restored digitally. And they said that this lab in Berlin was the only place in the world that could have possibly have done it. So that's the kind of reverse of what we're talking about moving forward. It's moving backwards in a I think, a real valuable way.
And it is very important to preserve that past. The British Film Institute in the UK has a mandate to preserve film and has been working very hard for decades on making sure that we don't lose the vast heritage of British film. And I would urge the Canada, China, USA, I'd urge you all to make sure that you are preserving your film in such a way that it can be available to future generations. The BFA has just made a very large back catalogue of films available for free across the net. That's an amazing resource, both culturally and in terms of academic study. So I think we should be trying to do that as much as we can.
I just wanted to say one more thing, again, having to do with this, what technology means. Often we think of technology as visual effects, I think. There's a movie out right now called Allied, Zemeckis' movie. He's one of the first people who experimented at one point with, what were we saying before?
Motion capture.
Yeah, motion capture, thank you. This movie I was surprised to read about the other day, and I saw it last week, has over 750 shots that were digitally dealt with. Since I don't know exactly how, but they were digitally dealt with. They were visual effects, for that matter. You'd never be able to pick out one of them. So it's not always about gigantic monsters moving through a scene by any means. It's also sometimes very subtle and ultimately important to storytelling. What good fortune that we have the tools to do it.
So far, we mentioned about the generation gap, we mentioned about the gender gap, and we go over a little bit about the history of how Western film industry react to technological change. So I have a question for Ms. Huang Lian. 我们都知道这个中国电影也是走了将近100多年的历史了，跟西方其实在这个时间上是同步的。但是中国电影的发展呢，有它自己独特的特色，也是从这个改革开放之后，我们才逐渐的说进入了这个全球的电影的发展。那么您的这个理解，就是中国电影在这个技术这方面的一个大的这样的一个环境，和现在可能跟西方的这个对技术的这个理解方面，您觉得有哪些异同？
这个话题还蛮大的，以我的这个在日常工作中的这个观察来看哈，我觉得其实没有什么太大的不同，就是对技术手段的这种追求，中国的电影人永远也是希望能够跟世界的同行们是走到一起，而且也非常渴望能够不断的来提升自己的在这种拍摄呀、制作方面的这些技术手段的，我上个月我们去了伦敦，其中就有一位他就是专门去讲怎么来拍3D 这种电影，那么他叫天宫公司吧，那么他们现在也是非常就是我们的这种寻龙诀，我们这些大片儿都是由他们这个公司来负责制作，所以在技术上可以说是不逊色于任何的这个国外的这些公司。那我们中影本身就有一个国家数字制作基地，那么基地整个的这个我刚才也简单的介绍了一下，就是它的整个的水准也是非常领先的，无论从硬件软件上讲，就大批的人才。那同时我们也是要向国外的同行学习了，是吧？包括电影局不断的派这些青年的电影人出去到好莱坞去学习、去培训等等，做一些就是包括跟学术上，就是电影学院呀，互相的这种交换、访问等等，通过各种各样的方式，来向这个最新的这个技术来靠拢，所以我觉得，技术就像刚才说到的，它一定是可以，因为电影是科技和艺术的结合嘛，所以它一定是一直在 inspire 的这个 art， 那么但是技术应该是让电影这个艺术更加完美的一种手段，但它肯定是不可能成为唯一的一个目的，这就是我个人的一种理解。
So it seems like the cultural gap is little compared to the generation and gender gap. So we talk about technology. So far we covered more about the technology in terms of filmmaking. But we also have technology in terms of social media, in terms of big data. So that actually play a big role in terms of the marketing, how to pick a script that turn to be a big blockbuster. So how do you think about this kind of technology that changing the storytelling? If we already can predict what will be the best seller next year from the big data, from the social network?
Well, it's given a lot of power to a group of people, the early, technology adopters, the Comic-Con sort of geeky types that never had that kind of power before. I mean, it grew over the last, but it's sort of like the people who live on Facebook and Twitter were handed the power to kill a movie. It's kind of a horrible thing. I always think about when, they were going to have a futures market on the commodities exchange about predicting box office returns, and they stepped back from that. But it's a shame, really, because it is the voice of a minority of people, because a lot of it is retweeting and reposting and that kind of thing about movies. So you can kill a movie a lot faster. You can kill a television show a lot faster as well. So I have mixed. I don't see it as an especially democratic development in the reception of movies. I thank God I'm not a studio executive or in distribution. It would be a nightmare.
Well, on the positive side, it's also a marketing tool. It replaces, television advertising to a certain segment of the audience anyway. I mean, from the beginning of movies, they had to be marketed for that first movie, for the Lumiere boys to be able to sell that first movie that they made. They had to talk about it to people, and the social technology, social media of today. I, of course, am not a user, not even close, but my grandson is, so I learn from him. It's how he learns about movies very often. So that's the good side of it.
A Spielberg-type warning would be that there is a tendency towards the lowest common denominator. That's a statistical term. In any large selection. And so if you're not careful and you base your choices of what you are going to make on the results of preferences of things that have happened, you're going to move towards the lowest common denominator. I can remember a discussion I was having with a Chinese filmmaker about 2 years ago, and they were saying, well, we need to make a lot more movies about young people getting good jobs and having romances in those jobs and moving up the social ladder, because some of movies about that subject have been very successful. And I said, but do you mean that because the movies have been very successful, you're going to make more movies like that? And they said, yes, because they will be successful. And I said, what guarantee do you have that your audience will want to see lots and lots and lots of the same thing? And they thought for a minute. They said, no, maybe we should make something else.
Ivor, you know that tack can never work. It just never will. And it's been tried before. Before social media came along, it's been tried. People would come around to the studios when I was a studio guy and say, we can tell you exactly what kind of movie to make. We can tell you. We have it statistically available. And can I say something? Bullshit.
And Professor Saiter, you want to?
Well, I thought you were going to ask about how social media now, they all want to have video on it, that Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, that they've all decided video is their survival mechanism. And it's just very interesting to me that they start one way. It's sort of like everything starts creeping back to longer form, things that approximate film and television, because that is, they're avidly pursuing it, Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat, and even, things like Snapchat, it's called Stories. Instagram also trying to get everybody to do, videos, post videos, and post them into some kind of a narrative, a personal narrative.
They can monetize that.
I mean, it's a little different story, but to me, because we talk about the technology or all like medias out there or social networking and stuff, but I like to talk about us as like who live in 2016 in here right now. So what I see is like we need to change the mentality or attitude to the technology. That's how I feel. The reason is that world changing so fast. When I grow up versus when my son is grow up, it's totally different. Back then, my hour was 24 hours, but now it's like 12 hours. Really go fast, right? Everything there's like every day, especially CG world, everything changed by month, right? Program got changed, like technique got changed, right? So if you're not adaptable, if you're not nimble enough to catching it up this fast train, you become more like dinosaur in 3 months, right? So again, we are talking about technology, how it affects the movie making, how it affects our life, how it affects the viewer's point of view. But in order to enjoy more, in order to move on to next kind of era, we need to change our mentality a little bit to more open-minded and adaptable. So again, think about everyone has like cell phone right now. If someone is ringing right now, right? But think about 10 years ago, how many of you guys actually imagine your cell phone has a like camera, small computer on top of it. Now you can download the VR app from your cell phone, right? It has everything. You travel with every world. But when I was grow up, in order to call my friend, I need to go home and call, right? Or we have a like public phone out there. But I cannot find any public phone unless it's airport or something, right? So things change really fast. And then as a filmmaker, as an audience, we should be ready to adopt it. So that's something I like to say.
那黄主编哈，就是大数据，还有这个互联网，在中国也是一个非常热的话题。那从您的角度，您觉得像这种大数据啊，它所分析出来的这些未来的趋势，是怎么样去影响中国电影的发展的？还有就是怎么样去影响，比如说像中影集团，它在选择拍片啊、投片这方面的一个关系。
我想这个事情应该是它正在进行当中的一个事情，就是说目前我还没有看到一个特别能够说明这个东西的一个实例，就是它已经是从开始已经中间然后进行到结束完成了这样一个，但是我们已经听到了很多人在做这种尝试。就是因为比如说可能他觉得那个 Netflix 有这个纸牌屋的成功，所以他也希望能够我们是不是也可以照着这个路数来。因为是现在云端你也知道云储存，然后它可以去上面去就是拿到很多的这种基本的一些储备，就是包括我说到的，比如说小说，甚至是网络小说，有很多海量的。那么他可能会去抓很多的像他想要的，比如说他要拍一个穿越什么古装这种的，那么他就去抓这种相应的东西。一个是宋朝，那么宋朝有些什么相关的这些知识点，那么他就省去了这种编剧的阅读量和知识的这种不足，但是他抓取这个东西，然后他再进行一些排列组合吧，这样出来的东西，我觉得就像那个上午盖尼斯先生说了一句，他说我们承认这个拍电影确实它是个 business 哈，但是我们还应该有 emotion。你这个排列组合的东西，它可能是一个在及格线这样，或者是在及格线以上的一个东西。可是编剧就是人的那个他的情感呢，他对这个东西的这个爱呢，怎么体现呢？因为说如果全是靠数据，全是靠这些出来的东西，是不是就缺少了这样一些成分在里边？那么它动人的成分就少了，所以我还是就是。我同意，我们是这个老一代，因为像玩的这些什么各种游戏，VR 什么AR，我也了解，但是我可能就不会像这个比如说95后或者00后对他们是那样的一个热衷。当然我承认他可能是在游戏领域可能会我更看好他在游戏领域就是会更迅速的来占领这个市场。但是电影呢，它应该说是相对应该还是要特殊一些吧，可能还需要有很长的路要走。
Thanks for your comments. And we've already collected a lot of questions here, so let me give some time for our audiences. The first question is, just as Mr. Ganis mentioned, it's a great fortune that we have such advanced technology now and can apply it into making a better film. How do we then find the balance when integrating technology and performing art? Is there a bottom line there, other than the ones Professor Kim mentioned earlier? So what is the bottom line here in terms of how to balance, say, technology and performing arts? That's a question from our audience. Who want to start?
It's a flexible. There's no bottom line. It's a line that will keep on, moving from one level to another based on the product.
I see it as rather than some kind of bottom line. Think of it more as a continuum. So every project that you enter will place the balance between craft, technology, and art. The position of the pointer will be in different places depending on the project. And I think one of the things that a good creator in any medium is thinking about is, where is my interest, me personally, as a creator? And then how do I fulfill that? And then technology and craft become the things that move you to, and they move you in different ways. So it's not just about I'm a creator and I use these things in an abstract way. I'm a creator, but I'm a very technically minded creator. I will gravitate towards technology. Or I'm a very craft-oriented person. I will move towards animating the sand, not towards animating the pixels. So these are individual things. They depend on a particular project, on a particular person. There is no bottom line.
Sure. And there's another way of saying it. There's nothing more intrusive than technology for technology's sake. We did see often saw that in the 80s when when filmmakers had these new tools and they were making extra use of them, both in sound and picture, and blast you out of a theater with explosions that didn't need to be there, as an example, and you then emotionally resign from the experience of enjoying the movie. That's changed now, I think.
I think one of the reasons I worry about special effects and new technologies is that it is a fact that Hollywood's making fewer movies because it's very expensive to make movies with a lot of new technologies. And what that means is fewer movies means fewer opportunities for a more diverse pool of types of directors to have chances to make films that will be distributed widely. So I'd really like to see, always more films, more feature films made in a given year. That being said, if you have a choice between spending your money on technology and spending your money on actors, we've all seen movies where a really fine actor runs amok and does a terrible movie, because they have too much control. And we've seen movies where the director just worried about the technology and forgot to direct the actors. So there's no necessarily right answer to that.
And with that point, we just have a question related to this. So this audience asks, with big budget, special visual effect dependent films becoming increasingly popular and taking a large part of the box office, do you think it's a game for only major film studios, or does independent filmmakers have a space in this competition? So this is a question.
Yeah, I can go ahead, because think about it. Back then, only ILM actually can create visual effect back then, right? But think about right now, even South Korea, even China, even Philippines or Indonesia, they actually do make the visual effect. Of course, the quality is still, they cannot really compete with Hollywood yet. However, the software price really goes down. That's another thing. When technology goes up, it's more accessible to everyone. Even my student at Emily Carr, they have even better equipment than any other like professional filmmaker back then in 2000, right? Their software is way more powerful, right? It's cheap. So again, technology gives us more freedom to express our own creativity and storytelling. So again, to me, it's either like you embracing it, make my own. So it's like my toolbox. I have a virtual reality and visual effect. How I use this tool in order to tell my own story or show my whole world, right? So that is something we should keep as a filmmaker, right? So it's not about should I take the technology and lose the storytelling or like artistic side. It should be more like I will use my technology in order to tell my story wisely or effectively.
Exactly. If anyone is familiar with Gareth Edwards' first movie, Monsters, he made that on a tiny budget and then edited it, did all the visual effects himself. He was a VFX editor anyway, so he had the skills. He edited it in his bedroom. It's about accepting the limitations and using the skills and creating the work. So no, I don't think that's the case. And I think that again, it's about the generation rolling over. There's a generation of people coming now who are being trained by Mr. Kim, who understand how to use those low-level technologies to create good quality video, good quality film. And they will tell their stories using those tools.
Somebody this morning said, from birth, we are all storytellers. That's not going to go away. Next generation, generation after that. So the need to tell stories visually, I agree with you all, will continue to exist. New technology, old technology, plain old storytelling technology.
That's a very good ending point. And thanks again for our great panel for this very interesting conversation.
And thank all of you for being here and being part of the inaugural Golden Panda Short Film Festival Industry Forum. So this concludes the formal parts of our forum today, and we welcome you to stay and to network outside, and there's still our industry partners around to chat with and find out more from. Again, can we hear a round of applause for everyone that presented and just for all of you who are here today and the staff that put this on? And our volunteers, our lovely volunteers.